Alrighty, everyone. Day one of axle seal replacement. I say day one because I have no idea how many days this is going to take me. And I don't know that I have that enough time to even do one today, let alone both. So, as you've seen in my earlier videos, I have been able to get this right side free. So I am going to start with this side. Start with the easy side. I had gotten the wheel all the way out to there. So we just got to get the remainder of the way. Now there's different ways you can go about doing this. And I'll tell you why I'm going to have to probably do it the way I am doing it. So with the wheels oriented like this, your cast centers are bolted to the back side of your spline hub on the outside here. So theoretically, you could unbolt these like I did. You could separate the cast center and the wheel, the cast center and the rim as a whole, push that off. And maybe you could just kind of rest it against the tractor or something like that. So really the only weight on the axle, once you have this lifted up, is the axle itself and the splined hub. From there, you could, do the rest of your process of pulling out the axle. I don't seem to have that luxury. These bolts, for some reason, are really stuck in there. I don't want to hammer on them too hard because I don't want to screw up the threads, even with a nut on them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide the whole wheel off, hub, and everything if I can. I have a skid loader here, so I'm going to have it chained up, ready to catch it when it comes off. I mean, I'm barely going to have it off the ground anyway, but you want to keep it from falling over. There is a ton of weight here. I think these cast centers alone are over 300 pounds. Plus tire and rim, so you're talking, I bet easily 800 pounds here. So don't stay safe while doing this. But anyway, your other option is you can do piecemeal. You can take your clamps off on the outside, can take the rim and tire off. Then what I've done before is undo this, like I said, separate the center, kind of set it on the axle, take the splined hub all the way off, and then you're free to take the center off. And at that point, you can just go reverse in the end. But yeah, there's no real point in me doing that either, no matter what. I'm going to have the center on. So I'm going to take all this off, probably lay this wheel and tire on the ground, and hammer the splined hub off when it's on the ground, see if I can get those bolts out, because otherwise I don't know, maybe not. I mean, getting it back on as a whole unit is going to be pretty tough. Oh yeah, the one thing I guess I should mention, the first method that I talked about, unbolting it from the spline hub and just setting it offset, then technically you never have to free your splined hub from the axle. Now those get so rusted on there that some people really struggle to get them off. Technically, if you do that, you don't have to loosen that. You can just slide the axle out with the hub, with that splined hub still on there. So in order to free this up, I did as the manual said. I'll show a picture here in a second. But I used a bottle jack on the end of the shaft, wrapped a chain through these holes on one side and through the other, and jacked while pushing off of the end of the axle. Here's a picture. So just be careful when you're doing that, because if you don't have it perfectly straight, it'll want to throw the jack down or up or something like that. Actually broke one of our bottle jacks trying to do it. Of course, when I say it broke the little piece attached to the lever arm, so to speak. That's the most minor piece on it, but it can't function without it. But anyways, I digress. So first off, I'm going to jack this up and see if I can get this wheel the rest of the way off. Okay, day number 2, because like I had thought day number 1, I didn't have time to do squat. Got the wheel off, first one. So after that, we got these cotter keys out from inside these nuts. Same thing as before, make sure you don't screw up the threads when you do that, otherwise you'll have some fun. This is bigger than 2-inch, so I don't think I have a wrench that big. I just use a pipe wrench. They're not that tight. They can't be that tight, otherwise the axle won't spin. So you don't have to really worry about getting too much torque on them. So what I want to do now is I want to spin these out to where they are covering up the threads. Then we're actually going to drive like a wedge in here in order to pop these out. Since I still have the wheel on this side probably won't move, and that's fine. But I want to work on getting this side out. Now, you've also got your dust cover seal out here. I think they say take like a punch, knock that out, but since we're replacing the inner seals, when we knock the axle out from back here, that'll just come out with it. Okay, first success. Looking in here, if you can see it. Yeah, I'd say she needed to be replaced. Even got some rust on her. And as I mentioned, this pops out with it. I got the gear out over here. So big gears and big bearings. So to pop that out, I believe we just take the axle out, put a rod in through there, and we pop it out from this, or from the other side out into the crankcase. Then we'll get the new one in and clean some things up, get it back together. Okay, so we got this old oil seal out. Like I said, it was kind of rusty on the, get the focus right, on this closest side. Back side wasn't bad. It doesn't look like it was actually leaking any oil, because if you look down in there or you reach down in there, there's no oil. That's how you would be able to look and tell for sure that it was leaking oil at some point. Now, this washer here is on the back side of it, and when you're pounding from that far side, this is what you're actually pounding against, and it's pushing this oil seal out. I was afraid at one point I was hitting this bearing race out, but I was not. That is fully seated in there. It's just the way the cast is. It's a little more inset on one side than the top. Somebody did a very good job greasing this. I tried to wipe away some excess grease, but it was just coated. I mean, there was more than a tube's worth in there. And I even cleaned out and turn on my headlamp in here, see if you can see a little bit. It was pretty coated in there. So yeah, we're gonna pound in this new seal. Surprisingly, you can get this seal at like New Paris Tractor or something like that. It's only a couple bucks more at Deere because I forgot to order it. So I got it from Deere. It's about 35 bucks a piece. So we'll pound this in. Make sure you get the washer in first. Very important. And then we'll put this all back together. I forget if I said it in a previous clip, this is the side that didn't want to move. You can see at this point I had gotten it to move, but it's been an interesting story getting to this point. So you can see I went with a different method. Had to borrow this from somebody, this setup. I mean, all it is long all thread, machined plate with the holes are just through holes in this. Anyway, initially I had this plate up against the axle, and then I was tightening these 3 nuts a little bit at a time. It still took a lot of torque. And then eventually, once it got loose enough, I was able to turn on this nut and just with one screwing motion bring the whole thing off. I went to this method. I don't like telling this story, but because it's kind of, I don't want to say embarrassing, but I want to make sure everyone else stays safe doing this. So, you know, they talk about the jacking method. That's what I used on the other side with the chain wrapped around it. Well, the problem is, I'm going to show you the jack that I even had this happen to, is you wrap the chain around it, and let's say the chain is going sideways around it like this, is there's nothing holding that jack stable in the other direction. And if you don't have it perfectly centered, it's bound to bust loose at some point. This thing was stuck really hard. I was putting a lot of pressure on it, and anytime I tightened that jack, I was leaning away from it and wearing all my safety glasses, and didn't have a hard hat on, but and you'll understand my joke about that in a minute. But I got it to move like even a 32nd of an inch, maybe a 16th, and it gave me a little too much confidence. I put a little more pressure on that jack, and I'm not kidding you, it let loose, flew up, and it either hit the mezzanine there or the ceiling up there. So you're talking a good 10 feet or better. And of course came crashing back down on the other side of the wheel. So I obviously seriously could have been injured. So after that I walked away and said enough of that. Thank the good Lord for looking out for me, and knew somebody that had this set up. So if I continue to do these tractors, I'm probably going to get a setup like this. It's just more slow and controlled, but way safer. Now, some people, I can understand using this and then putting the jack in here, because then the jack is stable on this plate. You know, I understand that too. I didn't have another jack that worked sideways. But the chain method, I just asked you guys, please don't do it. I'm here to attest to that it's very dangerous. I was very lucky, and I just hope my story will resonate a bit. And as much as, like I said, I don't like to talk about it or mention it, I feel kind of stupid for it, but it is what it is. So anyway, moving on, about got this wheel off. So I'll get the skid loader here and take this off. Fault washers, gotta soak these in oil first, and they'll go on the end eventually. But we've got to clean all this out, start putting this thing back together. So I'm not sure I showed the end of the axles, but here's the piece that you see from the outside. It's pretty dirty, and that was after I cleaned it off some. So we'll clean that up, and then on the inside of the axle here, you know, it's pretty nasty. So before I put this back in, I'll brush all this up, clean it up. Bearings look good, so they're just going to go back on. And this grease here, I'll probably just kind of redistribute. It's a little heavy on one side and not quite at the end there, so we'll clean that up and get this ready to go back in. I'll go ahead and put this on later. We've got to put a new felt seal in here. That's where that felt seal goes. So, one more tidbit. I just now realized cleaning this up. I didn't want anyone to be deceived when they if they watch this clip. But these blinds were so caked full of dirt, it looked like they ended back here. You can see, but I started cleaning them out, and they go all the way to here. So if any of you have to replace these, I can't remember. I didn't have to do that with my B either, but I think they press on and off. Not sure about that, so don't quote me. But yeah, so just didn't want anyone to be deceived. The position of these relative to the splines. Okay, so we got the left side back in. Pretty straightforward. I started to take the axle in. I actually had this sitting here beforehand. Don't forget your bearing. Once I got that in enough, it was some work to get this gear on to the splines again. What I had to do is take like a pry bar or something and just leverage up here to lift it up, line it up, get it started. And then I just tapped on the gear to get it moving on. Slide the axle the rest of the way in. Then I basically drew the gear on with the nut. So this nut, you don't get super tight because otherwise the axle won't turn. The manual for my B, and I don't know why this would be any different, said like something like 7/1000ths of play once you put a dial on it. Well, what I found with my B, and I know is going to be true here, just on the sheer size of things, is so I've got the slotted nut lined up with the hole, and it still spins just fine, but I can't go any more because I know it'll be way too tight. I don't think I could even get another one on here, and I could tell it was getting tight with the wrench, and I know, you know, if it's still rolling here, then if I go back one, it's going to be too loose. Because, you know, the depth of these threads, just that, you know, 1/5 of a turn or 1/6 of a turn is going to be more than 7/1000. So if I'm too tight one way, just right, and then too loose another, that's kind of the judgment I probably just going to make on it. So, okay, we'll get this other one in. Alright guys, so I think I'm going to end this video here. Got the other axle in. This gear for some reason was a lot harder to put on. Just couldn't get it lined up right, but I guess it's just the luck of the draw. Got my cotter keys in here. Like I said, I'll put these on later. I'll get the new felt in, but when you hammer these on, last time I took like a piece of PVC pipe or something in order to hammer it on evenly. So I know I think it can get kind of difficult with new felt seals, get these on to get them where they should be. So can't remember what I did last. If I put the in terms of my B, I think I put the felt on here first, then hammered this piece on. So good luck. I should mention, if you are going to replace like the bearings, the inner race and things like that, I do cover how I did that on my B. Basically ran a stick welder around it, but so you guys might get a little more info from my very first video, I think, that I did on my B. So have a good day, and we'll work on getting the rest of this rear end back together in another video. Thanks.